A great city doesn't fail because it runs out of money. It fails when the people who make it work can no longer afford to belong to it. Every city tells a story. Most people never see the real one. This is the truth of money. Imagine the richest city you can think of. The restaurants are full. Construction cranes fill the skyline. Luxury apartments sell for millions before they were even finished. The economy looks unstoppable. Now, answer one question. Where does the nurse live? Not metaphorically, literally. Where does the person working the night shift at the city's biggest hospital actually sleep? Where does the teacher grading homework until midnight go home? Where does the firefighter who might save that luxury apartment at 3 in the morning actually live? Because in more and more cities around the world, the answer is not here. That's not a housing story. It's not even an affordability story. It's something much bigger. Because once a city begins pushing out the very people it depends on, it quietly starts consuming itself. Not all at once, not dramatically. Slowly, profession by profession, street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. Until one day, the city looks richer than ever, while becoming strangely incapable of taking care of itself. And here's the part almost nobody notices. This didn't happen because somebody planned it. There wasn't a secret meeting, no conspiracy, no mastermind. Millions of completely rational decisions created one completely irrational outcome. And once you see the mechanism, you'll never look at another record home prices headline the same way again. Because this isn't really a story about houses. It's a story about incentives, about land, about cities, about the invisible economic forces deciding who gets to stay and who quietly gets pushed out. And the strangest part? A man figured this out almost 150 years ago, long before skyscrapers, long before billion-dollar tech companies, long before the modern housing crisis even had a name. His warning wasn't just about land, it was about what happens when success itself starts making a city impossible to live in. And today, that warning is everywhere. You just haven't been taught to recognize it yet. Imagine building the perfect city. You invest billions into new subway lines. The parks are beautiful. Crime falls. Schools improve. New cafes open on every corner. Hospitals expand. Public transport becomes faster. Every improvement makes the city a better place to live. Or at least, that's what it's supposed to do. Because something strange happens next. The people who actually made those improvements possible begin disappearing. The teacher who spent 20 years educating children can't afford the neighborhood anymore. The young doctor who just finished medical school rents a tiny apartment 90 minutes away. The electrician who keeps office towers running moves to another town. The carpenter who built the luxury homes can no longer afford to buy one. Even the police officer protecting the neighborhood often can't live inside it. Think about how bizarre that is. The city improves, and the people improving it get pushed farther away. Most people think this happens because houses became expensive. But that's backwards. Houses aren't the beginning of the story. They're the result. The real story starts underneath them, with land. Because a building gets older every year, paint fades, pipes wear out, roofs leak. Everything humans build slowly loses value unless someone maintains it. Land doesn't work like that. A vacant piece of land beside a new subway station can become worth twice as much, even if absolutely nothing on it has changed. The owner didn't build the station. The owner didn't reduce crime. The owner didn't improve the schools. The owner simply happened to own the ground beneath it. And suddenly, everyone else is competing to stand on that same piece of earth. This is where cities quietly change their purpose. Originally, cities existed to make people more productive. Factories clustered together, markets reduced transport costs, ideas spread faster, workers learned from one another. Businesses grew because talented people could meet, trade, and innovate in the same place. Cities existed to create value. But somewhere along the way, something flipped. Now the city itself became the product. The location became more valuable than the work happening inside it. And once that happens, everything begins to reorganize around protecting that value. Not intentionally, not maliciously, simply inevitably. Think about your favorite neighborhood. Why is it expensive? Is it because someone painted the houses a different color? Of course not. It's expensive because of everything around it. The school, the hospital, the train station, the park, the restaurants, the jobs, the people, the safety. Millions of individual contributions. combine into one incredibly valuable place. But here's the question almost nobody asks. Who receives the biggest financial reward for creating all of that? The nurse, the teacher, the engineer, the small business owner, or the person who already owned the land before everyone else arrived, nearly 150 years ago? One man looked at exactly this puzzle. American cities were booming. Railroads were expanding. Factories multiplied. Technology advanced faster than ever before. And yet, poverty wasn't disappearing. In some places, it was getting worse. That contradiction obsessed him. His name was Henry George. And the answer he found still explains why some of the richest cities on Earth can no longer afford the very people who keep them alive. Henry George wasn't looking for a housing theory. He wasn't trying to predict a property bubble. He wasn't even writing about real estate. He was trying to answer a much stranger question. Why could a country become richer while ordinary people struggled more than ever to simply exist inside it? That single observation changes how you read an entire economy. When a new subway opens, who becomes richer? When a public park is built, who benefits first? When schools improve, who captures the financial gain? The teacher, the engineer, the taxpayers who funded it, or the land surrounding it? Henry George wasn't arguing that landowners were villains. That isn't what made his work revolutionary. His point was much deeper. He believed society was constantly creating value together. Roads, hospitals, universities, businesses, culture, safety. Every generation adds another layer, and every layer makes certain locations more desirable. The question wasn't who created the value. The question was who captured it. The city still looks successful. New towers rise, luxury restaurants open, property values hit another record. New investment arrives. From the outside, everything appears stronger than ever. But underneath, something essential is quietly weakening: the productive backbone. Economists have a word for this: not housing inflation, not even inequality. It's called misallocation of capital. Capital is supposed to flow toward the activities that create the most future value, the best ideas, the best inventions, the most productive businesses. Instead, they mean more and more money flows into bidding up the price of things that already exist. An apartment, a block of land, an office tower. The economy starts competing over ownership instead of creation. Think about two young graduates. One dreams of opening a manufacturing business. The other stretches every dollar just to buy an apartment before prices rise again. Which one does society quietly reward? Opening the factory means years of uncertainty. Employees, machines, competition, risk. Buying property, banks are eager to lend. Everyone tells you it's safe. Politicians celebrate rising prices. Your parents call it responsible. One path creates something new, the other hopes yesterday's asset becomes more expensive tomorrow. And increasingly, the second choice looks like the rational one. And here's the most dangerous part. Nobody intended this outcome. Every buyer acted rationally. Every bank followed sensible lending rules. Every homeowner wanted financial security. Every politician wanted happy voters. Every decision made sense on its own. But together, those perfectly rational choices produced a city that could no longer afford the people it needed most. Once you see that, another question becomes impossible to avoid. If everyone is acting rationally, why does the system keep producing irrational results? The answer lies somewhere even deeper, not in people, in incentives. Because incentives quietly decide what an economy builds, long before anyone realizes what it has stopped building. Now, imagine proposing a policy that causes home prices to fall. Who loses? Not only investors, not only developers, millions of ordinary families who spent decades paying off a mortgage, retirees counting on the value of their home, parents hoping to leave something to their children, people who followed every rule, worked every job, saved every paycheck. They didn't create the system, but now their financial future depends on it. And that's what makes this different from almost every other economic problem. Most systems break because people stop believing in them. This one becomes stronger because people do. The more expensive housing becomes, the more desperately everyone wants to own it. The more people depend on rising prices, the harder reform becomes. The ladder gets pulled up, not because people become selfish, but because they're afraid of falling themselves. But somewhere along the way, the relationship quietly reversed. Now, production often exists to support property. Workers don't move where they're most productive. They move where they can still afford rent. Businesses don't always invest where they can build the best products. They invest where land makes the safest collateral. Young graduates don't first ask, "What can I create?" They ask, "How do I get on the property ladder before it's too late?" The purpose didn't collapse. It quietly flipped. So, the next time you read a headline celebrating record home prices, pause for a second. Ask yourself a different question. Who actually created that value? The construction worker, the teacher, the engineer, the taxpayers, the entrepreneur, the community, or who simply acquired the legal right to charge everyone else for access to it? Because once you start asking that question, you'll begin seeing cities differently. You'll begin seeing economies differently. And eventually, you'll begin seeing money differently. If this video changed the way you think about the places you live, don't let the conversation end here. Leave a comment below which idea challenged you the most. I read every single one. And many of our future investigations begin there. If you want to understand the hidden systems behind money, power, and history, subscribe. Because every week, we uncover another piece of the story that's been hiding in plain sight. This is the truth of money, where the biggest economic stories are never really about money. I'll see you in the next one. A great city doesn't fail because it runs out of money. It fails when the people who make it work can no longer afford to belong to it.